itself is not something that reaches the heavens per se. It's actually something that you can reach when you move inward towards depth, understanding yourself, understanding your patterns, and understanding what needs to be cleansed. For me, it is really embodying the light that is within me and embodying the darkness that surrounds me, working hard to grow the light within so that it shines through me and reaches proper expansion. It isn't something that I can begin expanding outside of me. It is only something that can shine through me. I can fake a smile, I can fake being happy, but you will always notice that when someone is faking that, there's darkness and sadness that you can read through the eyes. And so when you are doing the work from within, you will see the happiness and the light shine through the eyes. It's undeniable. As the years go by and I move deeper and deeper into this work, this time of the year for me is always the time that I dreaded the most. And now it's the time that I find it the most impactful. I can't say that it's always joy. I can't say that it's always peace, because going in and cultivating inward, a lot of the times it's working with our inner darkness. So it's not the most peaceful, it's not the most joyous time, but it is what creates joy and it is what creates peace. And we can't have the yin without the yang. It's just not possible. These 8 tips are tips that I love exercising myself. I would highly recommend for you to come up with a personal plan that feels good to you and just use these as inspiration or use them directly. But I think creating a plan for yourself in these next couple of weeks while you're in Mercury in retrograde to really help you move through the energy, to really help you go in deeper for ascension will benefit you the most. What I want you to put at the forefront of this plan or of these tips is to do everything with complete presence and intention. It's not to just move through the motions, but it is actually to set intention of what you want to achieve when taking action to move yourself inward. I'm going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to jump right in to 8 tips for going inward.
Driving around with a pale green tree, car still smelling like miércoles pasado. Fuchila, fuchila, throw it out. Fuchila, fuchila, spice it up. Fuchila fresheners bringing that get fresh feeling across America.
Tip number 1. To cleanse. Cleansing can be in different forms. Maybe you do a food cleanse, maybe you do a juice cleanse to work on cleansing within, or maybe you do a space cleanse to cleanse without, or maybe you do both. Cleansing without can include saging, using Palo Santo, and perhaps doing a deep clean of your space, organizing your space as above, so below, as within, so without. So remember that the way you're feeling within always reflects in the space that surrounds you, and vice versa. The space that surrounds you always reflects what you're feeling within. It always feels so good to have a clean space. It also feels so good to reset your body, do some sort of a juice cleanse, do some sort of a food cleanse to bring clarity and thought positivity. Tip number 2, detaching. Detaching yourself from something you are currently consuming that isn't serving you. Maybe you're consuming cheese consistently. Maybe you're consuming too much meat. Maybe you're consuming too many chips. Pick an item or several items that you know you need to detach from. Again, be conscious as you're detaching. Detach with intention in order to allow for clear thought to come through, because remember that things that we consume weigh our body down. Detaching outwardly. As you're cleansing your space, as you're organizing your space, perhaps you are witnessing items that you're hoarding, that you're not using, that can benefit someone else in other ways. So perhaps it's time to purge the items that surround you that are not serving you. So detaching yourself from material or detaching yourself from any addictions you might be currently facing is a great way to go inward. Tip number 3, forgiveness. Identify if there is something that you are feeling guilty for. Forgiveness is solely focused on you. It's not about forgiving someone else. It's about forgiving yourself. Perhaps there's something you've done, perhaps there's something you've allowed, but it has to do with forgiveness of self. I think one of the biggest mistakes is really seeking to try and forgive others. I think the most important entity, being, energy that needs to be forgiven is self. Because when we are not forgiving ourselves for mistakes that we have made, there is absolutely no way that we can begin to forgive others. Compassion and love has to start within. So in the same way that we need to love ourselves first before we begin to love others, in that same way we need to forgive ourselves first before we can forgive others. Everything has to start from within. The only way you can walk through that door is by starting with yourself, and then naturally you'll begin to project that same compassion, that same love, that same level of forgiveness to those outside of you. So maybe during this time you identify something you need to forgive yourself for, and maybe you write a letter to yourself. Maybe you really cultivate what it means to forgive yourself for mistakes that you have made. Tip number 4, acceptance. Acceptance, I think, is one of those tasks that we may confuse with forgiveness. Acceptance is identifying something that you cannot change, that you consistently torment yourself for being as is. Acceptance is understanding that it has to be the way it is because it is. Coming to a place where you accept that. It can be something on the surface or it can be something that is deeper. Learning to accept can move you into a space of gratitude. One of the easiest ways that we can experience change, abundance, and expansion is to move into a space of gratitude. But you cannot move into a space of gratitude if you are not able to accept what is currently taking place. The things you cannot change. You accept them and then you find the door to gratitude. Tip number 5 for going inward is fire. Utilizing fire. Fire is such an underrated, powerful, meditative tool that can really relax us. Starting a fire, and I say this with all responsibility, start a responsible fire. If you don't have access to a fireplace, maybe you have access to a grill, or maybe you simplify it even further and you light a candle. Although I really would like to open up the space to move away from lighting a candle and find a way to go inward with a much larger fire. I think a bigger fire can make you go in deeper. Staring into fire can be a very powerful tool to cleanse your soul. It can also spark inspiration, and it can take you down a portal into a thought level that is residing in the subconscious. It is a powerful meditative tool that we all have access to, and we just need to find the space to create it. Perhaps you don't have access to a fire. Maybe you live in an apartment, you can't create a fire. You don't have access to a beach with bonfire. You don't have access to a camping site. It's okay. Then I would say to utilize the sun. Remember, the sun is a great big ball of fire, and it also has cleansing properties that can really help you go inward. Watching the sunset can stimulate peace and awaken a powerful essence of beauty. How many times have you watched the sunset by accident? You're driving maybe and the sun is setting and it's like, whoa, look at the sun. It's mesmerizing. It can really transform and take you away for those few minutes as it's setting. Not to mention that the sun itself is scientifically proven to enhance endorphins. It causes happiness. It helps prevent depression and reduces anxiety. That is, I think, one of the most important tools as you're going inward to find spaces and places that will keep you in the perfect balance of nurturing yourself and placing yourself in a positive state. Because going inward can get really dark, it's important to find elements that can help you find peace and joy as you're going inward. Tip number 6, water. Drinking water helps so much with levels of anxiety. It helps rejuvenate your skin. Dehydration affects mood levels. It increases negativity in your body. And so it's important to constantly stay hydrated to increase positive thoughts. Water helps eliminate toxins out of the body. So important because I don't think that we really think about what toxins are not only doing to the body, but doing to our mental state and how they're affecting our level of consciousness, growth, and expansion. Being in water reduces drastic levels of stress and anxiety. This, of course, includes being in the ocean, being by a river, being by a lake. But if you don't have access to any of that, it is as simple as taking a shower or having a bath. Being in water reduces levels of anxiety. It also boosts creativity and provides a space for a drastic shift in our energy body, including being generous, including being loving, including being positive, and being open. I don't know about you, but every time I'm feeling down, one of the first things I want to do is I want to take a shower. There's something that is intuitively cleansing. We are naturally drawn to it, so don't underestimate being in water. If you can get to a bigger body of water, a different type of body of water, that's great. But if you don't, just use the shower. It has always been a powerful place for me to receive downloads. It's like the moment my body cleanses, I start to open up my mind and receive messages. Tip number 7, earthing or grounding. I absolutely love earthing and grounding. It's actually become part of my morning routine. It is also my go-to the moment I start to feel levels of anxiety. The quickest way to regulate my anxiety is to go outside and start to earth. For those that don't know what earthing or grounding is, it just simply means removing your shoes, stepping on dirt, grass, sand, rock. We receive so much energy from the earth. If you can wet the ground, wet the dirt, wet the grass, and then step on it, it's a quicker way to activate. It's almost like, you know how dangerous it is for electricity to be close to water because it creates a powerful current of electricity. It's the same thing. When you're earthing, the earth is releasing negative electrons, and that is completely shifting your body. Instead of being in the space of fight or flight, you actually move into the space of rest and digest. Grounding neutralizes free radicals. Free radicals are generated through inflammation, infection, cell damage, and even trauma. So grounding helps to treat our immune system, forces our body to attack those free radicals. Grounding can also improve sleep, and it regulates stress by improving our cortisol levels. So high cortisol is associated with chronic stress, and grounding flips that. And last but not least, tip number 8, air. Breathing air is a great way to go inward. Breath increases energy, it improves the respiratory system, it calms the nervous system, it releases muscle tension, it improves our mental state, and it helps with clarity and productivity. I want to again just reiterate that it is so important for us to go inward, and this is exactly what inward means. It's finding ways to quiet the mind, clear the mind, tend to the mind, nurture ourselves. I think Mercury in retrograde is a great time to go inward, but don't forget that even when we're not in Mercury in retrograde, it is always helpful to take a couple of days a week, if not at least one day a week, to really fully recharge, tap into self, make sure you're doing okay, witness what is surrounding outside of you so that you can get clues to what type of work you need to do within so that you can shift everything that is going on outwards, outside of you. And of course, always finding a way to accept those things that you are not able to change. These are some of my favorite ways to go inward. Share with me on Instagram what are some of your favorite ways to go inward. For references that backs up my tips with science facts, please look at the link in my description. I didn't list all of the benefits to my tips, so if you want to look into them even further, go ahead and check the links in my description. I also want to quickly remind you that July healings are now up on my website. If you're interested in receiving an energy healing, clearing the energy, any stagnant energy that you may have from within, we can do that together. Head over to the website, click the link on the bio. I also want to let you know that this month on Patreon, I'm not going to be hosting a full moon ritual. What I'm going to be doing this month is going over the 4 phases. So if you need a refresher of the 4 phases during the moon cycle series, if you haven't heard the moon cycle series, please head over, listen to the moon cycle series. It's completely bingeable. It's mind blowing. I'm going to go ahead and do a little seminar on Patreon going over this and answering any questions that you may have. And of course, updating it with knowledge that I have now because I created that almost 2 years ago. So head over to Patreon, join the family. For only $8, I produce so much value over there, including additional content, including fun behind the scenes content, accessibility to a Q&A. I have currently begun to draw boundaries on my Instagram account, and I'm moving away from answering any questions via my DM, but you can always ask questions anonymously via our monthly Q&A over on Patreon. And then of course our monthly rituals, which sometimes turns into seminars. Like this month, we're going to go ahead and review the moon cycles and understanding the moon cycles in greater depth. And then I also want to let you know that I was on the Selfish Latina podcast from Project Enye. You can head over to my Patreon account and access that content for free. It's accessible to anyone. Click the Patreon link on my bio, or you can head over to Project Enye's Instagram account and access that content there. I recently did a post on my Lose Warrior account, so you can have that direct you to the Project Enye Instagram account. It's such a great interview. I think if you have a friend that you really want them to start listening to Let There Be Lose, but they're like, I don't know about that, send them the Project Enye interview and they will get a different perspective of the type of work that I'm doing. I do realize that this content is for people that are ready to receive the content, and it is not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. But if you know that there's someone that can benefit from the content and is still feeling apprehensive, that is such a great interview to send over. Happy journey inward. May the light within grow stronger.